औज़ुबिल्लाहिमिनश्शैतानिर्रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वाहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली। नाज़रीन, दिस इज़ सानी खान एंड यू आर वाचिंग न्यू एपिसोड ऑफ इनसाइड फाइनेंशियल मार्केट्स। बाज़ार में काफ़ी गर्मी है, इंटरेस्ट रेट के ऊपर वी नो व्हाट इज़ द रिज़ल्ट एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड जिस तरह की बातें हो रही हैं जनवरी ऑनवर्ड, पीपल एक्सपेक्ट कि ये नेक्स्ट जो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी है उसमें ये सिंगल डिजिट में चला जाएगा या उससे अगली में। सो द मूव फॉरवर्ड इज़ कि तमाम इन्वेस्टर्स, तमाम पैसा कैपिटल मार्केट की तरफ चैनलाइज हो रहा हो। रियल इस्टेट के जो वैल्यूएशंस के रेट हैं उसको भी गवर्नमेंट इस वजह से बीफ अप करती है कि गवर्नमेंट की डिज़ायर है कि कैपिटल मार्केट की तरफ कैपिटल का इनफ्लो हो। पर गोइंग फॉरवर्ड जिस तरह के चैलेंजेस हैं इकोनॉमी के ऊपर, जिस तरह की बातें हो रही हैं, उसमें किसी हद तक लोगों को गौर से देखने की, जांचने की, परखने की ज़रूरत है एज़ टू वेदर कि ये चीज़ें सस्टेनेबल किस हद तक हैं। पाकिस्तान की जो कैपिटल मार्केट है उसमें वक्तन फ़वक्तन रिफॉर्म्स होती रहती हैं, रिफॉर्म्स की बातें भी होती रहती हैं और 2-2, 3-3 साल के रिफॉर्म एजेंडास पे काम होता है। सो आज के प्रोग्राम में हमारे साथ शरीक गुफ्तगू रहेंगे डेविड वाइट। इन्होंने 2-3 कैपिटल मार्केट के लिए कंसल्टेंसी के प्रोजेक्ट्स किए हैं। कैपिटल मार्केट की रिफॉर्म्स में इनका एक कलीदी किरदार रहा है, इम्पॉर्टेंट रोल रहा है। इनसे हम बातचीत करेंगे और समझने की कोशिश करेंगे कि ये जो आज के दौर में बातें हो रही हैं कि कैपिटल मार्केट का इकॉनमी के साथ कोई डिस्कनेक्ट है या नहीं है, ये इसको एज एन इंडिपेंडेंट कंसल्टेंट कैसे देखते हैं एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड पाकिस्तान की कैपिटल मार्केट को किस तरह की रिफॉर्म्स की ज़रूरत है। मिस्टर डेविड वाइट, वेलकम टू द शो एंड गुड इवनिंग।
Good evening. Thank you, Sani. Thank you for having me on.
Mr. David, you're looking at our market. There are talks about our market that it has skyrocketed, and some people have this view and opinion that there is a little connection with the economy when it comes to the market capitalization. Our market capitalization is hovering at about $60 billion, which is 40% less to the times when we made the highest earlier record in 2017 when we crossed 54,000 index level, and today our index level is hovering at 110,000. However, market capitalization is just about $60 billion. So when you look at the economy, when you look at the capital market, you have a view on this as to whether it is our market is connected with the economy or not.
Right. Well, I think you have to put the numbers into some perspective. The GDP is now about 307. I think last year was 374 billion US.
Right.
Your figures that you're using for the market cap in US dollars, of course, the Pak rupee has dropped quite substantially, now around 277.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was back in 2017, but I would think it was more like 120 or something like that. So
right.
it's a big drop in the rupee value, and obviously, although the GDP has increased in US dollar terms, the market cap has gone down, if you like, in market terms. Relative to those index values at 54,000 versus the current 110 or whatever it is at the moment. So I think the issue is that most markets look to run at around 100% of the capitalization of the leading companies or the main index looks to run around 100% of the GDP number. And of course, the KSC 100, I think, at 374 billion GDP is only about 11% of that for the top 100 companies. I'm not sure it is for the 557 that make up the total market, but it looks good to say the index has gone so far, but we're constantly seeing a reduction in the value of the index compared to the actual real economy, and that I think is an issue that has to be looked at. Now there are these reforms that have been put forward by IMF. I think it's around 25 state-owned enterprises are supposed to be listed on the exchange or privatised, and gain value. I can't remember when was the last increase in oil and gas development, but oil and gas development is most probably one of the largest capitalised entities, but the percentage of actual float on the exchange is fairly small compared to the government's holding. So if they were to make these 25 companies and increase the shareholding, where are the investors going to come from? Right. We've seen a reduction in the foreign investors in Pakistan. Are they going to come back to that level? Are there local investors that can raise the money to meet this process? And at the moment, you've got the banks really are not investing in the real economy. They're investing in the government bonds because they get so good a return. And they're the major suppliers of capital to the government. So it's a bit circular, the whole thing. As a lot of things in Pakistan are circular. It doesn't matter if you're looking at circular debt in the energy sector or the way it works in the banking system. There needs to be real money come into the economy to implement these reforms. And I struggle a little bit to see where that money is going to come from under all these reforms. Even the tax process of saying we're going to have all this increase in tax, we've had the issue of whether it's the salary man that has to pay this increase or whether it's the economy itself. And there is a lot of issues there in relation to moving from the reforms on paper to getting the reforms into the economy itself. And that is, I think, the biggest issue. So, yes, the index is doing very well. I saw today that somebody was saying it might be 125,000 by Christmas. Good luck, if it gets to that level. But, of course, we know with the volatility of the Pakistan market that quite often it will make these periodic rises all of a sudden to fall again. And as they say, there can be blood in the streets because all of a sudden, the market crashes again. And I think you have to be a little bit cautious. And if I was an investor in Pakistan, I'd be a little bit cautious as to whether this is this is a new dawn and it is a new valuation process or not. And will the reforms actually occur? That's, I think, is the biggest issue.
Understood. So, talking about the volatility, you have seen all the markets of the world. The type of volatility and the level of volatility that is in the play nowadays, the market goes up 3,000 points in one day, and very next day it bounces back by 4,700 index points. So, with this type of volatility and prices not being touching to the level which were there in 2005, for example, OGDC was trading at for about 280 level previously, and now with this level of 110,000, OGDC is still trading at less than 150. So you have seen the markets, and when we talk about the volatile markets, you see much participation, much exuberance, much excitement in the markets where there is more volatility, and you see people going to the casinos or preferring stock markets, volatile stock markets over casinos.
Well, I think first of all, the price earnings ratio for the market has been very low for a long time. And I think the re-rating of that, I think it's gone from like 4 to about 5.7 or something like that.
5.7.
Yeah. So that re-rating is good. But if we were to look at international markets, the sort of size of Pakistan, those mid-tier frontier markets, if you like,
right.
They would be trading at a PE of 14 to 18 or thereabouts.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of upside potential. The question is, are there the investors to come in at the new prices to supply those new valuations? And that's to be seen, I think. I can see the index going up, continuing to go up, but if there's a hiccup, if there's a reversal, it could disappear quite quickly.
And how about the investors, local investors? For foreigners, we understood that foreigners will be very, very cautious before entering to the market. But you see local investor, an ordinary man on the street, going to the capital market, or you see him taking a side as well?
Well, it's been a struggle. The actual participation numbers, the growth in accounts at CDC or at NCCPL for clearing and settlement, it's not been dramatic increases in those numbers. It's been steadily increasing. So I'm not sure that there will be the investor appetite and more investors coming into the market. I think on the PMEX, the commodity exchange, they have about 25,000 investors, but they're trading foreign markets. They're not trading product which is in the local market.
Right.
They're not helping. Their derivatives are not helping the Pakistan stock exchange products. They're international products that they're trading. So one of the issues is, you need to have risk management tools for investors to be able to manage the risks that they've got. And for a long time, we've been trying to develop a proper derivatives market in Pakistan. We have these futures product that are traded, but they're not the same as the futures type products that are traded in other markets. And of course, we've seen in the last 25 years, we've had this issue since the bad days of Badla, and we've seen the Indian market get rid of that, introduce proper derivatives, and now they've got one of the largest derivatives markets in the world with proper CCPs and clearing and risk management practices in place. And I think there's still a journey for Pakistan to undertake to get proper derivatives in place.
Understood. Mr. David, this is now time for a short break. After the break, we would want you to kindly present to our audience the type of reforms which are needed to beef up the investor base, bring new issuers, new listing, and some inflows from the foreigners as well. So people, don't go nowhere. Let's meet after a short break. वेलकम बैक नाजरीन। नाजरीन, प्रोग्राम के पिछले सेगमेंट में डेविड वाइट ने हमें तफसील के साथ बताया कि कैपिटल मार्केट में अगर हमारी सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ नहीं है तो उसके फ्रंट पर चैलेंजेस किस तरह के हैं। डेविड वाइट ने हमें बताया कि बहुत ज़्यादा वॉलेटिलिटी मार्केट के लिए अच्छी नहीं है, लेकिन मार्केट के इंडेक्स का बढ़ना इज़ क्वाइट यूजुअल, क्वाइट सम सॉर्ट ऑफ समथिंग विच वाज वेल एक्सपेक्टेड, बिकॉज जो लेवल्स हैं, जो प्राइस की अर्निंग है वो ऐसी है कि मार्केट को री रेट होना चाहिए। बट जो परेशानी की बात है वो ये है कि आपके पास जो लिस्टेड स्टॉक्स हैं वो पाई बहुत छोटी है, नंबर ऑफ़ लिस्टेड कंपनीज बहुत कम है, जो एक्टिव ट्रेडर्स हैं वो बहुत कम हैं, और जो पीमैक्स है वो जिस तरह के डेरिवेटिव्स को ट्रेड कर रहा है वो ट्रेड कर रहा है न्यूयॉर्क के इंडेक्स को, वो ट्रेड कर रहा है बाहर के इंडेक्स को, मगर पाकिस्तान PSX का जो इंडेक्स है वो कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज पर ट्रेड नहीं हो रहा। डेविड वाइट हैज़ अ व्यू कि पाकिस्तानी कैपिटल मार्केट को रिफॉर्म किया जाना चाहिए। पाकिस्तानी कैपिटल मार्केट में जो रिस्क मैनेजमेंट रिजीम है उसको इम्प्रूव करने की ज़रूरत है। पाकिस्तानी कैपिटल मार्केट में जो इशूअर है उसको कॉन्फिडेंस देने के लिए कुछ रिफॉर्म्स की ज़रूरत है। नए इन्वेस्टर बेस के लिए कुछ ऐसे इकदाम की ज़रूरत है जिससे एक इन्वेस्टर अपने आप को प्रोटेक्टेड फील करे। सो इस सेगमेंट में हम डेविड वाइट से समझने की कोशिश करेंगे कि वो कौन से रिफॉर्म्स हैं जिनकी ज़रूरत पाकिस्तान की कैपिटल मार्केट को है। Mr. David White, in this segment of the program, we would want you to kindly express your view and opinion as to which type of reforms are needed by the Pakistani capital market.
Well, I think there's been a reform program for some time now, but there's been lots of talk about introducing new derivative products, of having closer relationship between the exchange and the clearing company to introduce CCPs and develop proper derivatives, but they haven't been actually rolling out the products. They've talked about it now for most probably the last 8 years.
Right.
But the actual product development hasn't occurred, and the new products haven't rolled off the table because the MFS's margin financing system has continued to be in place, and they haven't replaced that. And PMEX itself is trading foreign products, not really trading product related to the Pakistan equity market. So there's no real risk management tools which modern capital markets have. I mentioned India. India's done a fantastic job on their derivatives market. The introduction of new products has seen it become one of the largest derivative markets in the world, and it supports the daily equity activity that takes place. And we don't see that nexus in Pakistan like has happened in India. So that's one reform I think that needs to be really readdressed. I mean, it's been talked about for a long time, but the products aren't being developed and they aren't rolling off the production line, so that investors have got these risk management products to help them manage their positions. And I think that's one major thing that has to happen. The structure of the index and how it relates to the economy is another issue. You've got 177 companies that are defaulted companies or in those various lists. For years, there's been a promise to delist these companies that don't meet the requirements. Other markets don't allow them to carry on these defaulter boards. They get rid of them.
Yeah.
And, it just clogs the system up in a way. If you're going to trade a product, you need to have it viable, and you need to make sure that you're devoting your resources to things you're going to actually see an increase in value. These defaulter companies just sit there and clog up the system in a way. That's the way I see it. So I think there needs to be, new energy to try and fix that situation up. Getting new listings, getting the current government-owned entities, or where the government's still got a majority ownership, to sell that down is important. Those reforms, the IMF reforms to list the state-owned enterprises, is very important. But of course, you've got to have the investors and the money available for them to invest in these new entities. So the reform is there to say, let's do this. Will the cash be available either in the local market, through the banks, through some sort of margin financing type process, etc., for the banks to be able to support investors to invest in these state-owned enterprises, the privatisation, or not? Are the banks still going to be funding the government's bond process? It's government bonds are 70% of the GDP. It's a big number.
Right. So government is actually moving towards sukuk because there is a 26th Amendment that suggests that by 2027, early January 2028, the interest shall be completely abolished from the Pakistani banking systems. So it is because of that that government is moving away from the treasury bills to sukuk, and government has chosen the platform of Pakistan Stock Exchange. So there is a lot of trading fee, a lot of income because of the trade, because at times it happens when there are auctions of the government Islamic treasury, the trading income from that type of instrument is higher than the equity or the whatever you may call it, equity derivatives, that is deliverable futures, MFS and MTS. So going forward, are you seeing that our market, in the name of risk aversion, is going to move away from the normal equity market, and it will just become a platform to facilitate government to raise the debt, Islamic debt, from the capital market?
Well, I don't think that's the function. That is the normal function of a capital market in other countries. I don't see that, say, in Malaysia, which is a fairly Islamic country,
right,
and has got a good sukuk market.
Yeah.
It has sukuk issuance and it raises sukuk debt, etc.
Right.
But it sits alongside the development of the equity market because they have good products for both the cash equities market and for the derivatives market.
Right. Right.
So I don't think you can just exclusively say, oh, we're just going to raise Islamic debt through sukuks. You need to have a market which is fully functioning, and I think investors want that as well.
Understood. So, David, we are running out of the time. We are only left with 90 seconds time. If you want to give any message to the regulator or our viewers, our platform is available to you, please.
Well, it's not my position to tell Pakistan how to do, or the regulator how to regulate the market or anything.
Right.
All I'm saying is I've been coming to Pakistan since the early 2000s. I think my first visit 2004. I've been involved in a number of projects on the capital markets. I'd like to see the fruition of the derivatives market, which has long been needed, and I think that's a key reform. I'd like to see the defaulters moved away. If they're not going to produce revenue for the exchange, etc., find a way of reforming that, and find a way to actually fund the IMF's program of state-owned enterprises privatising. It's one thing to say you're going to privatise them, but it's another thing to make sure there's capital available to pay that money to the government, which will eventually reduce the debt for Pakistan. I think that's the rationale behind the reform, and I think the only way to do that is to make sure that there is a banking system and a financing system that enables investors to participate in that process.
Understood. David, thank you for taking out time and speaking to us. नाज़रीन, आज के प्रोग्राम में शरीक गुफ्तगू रहे डेविड वाइट, जो कि वर्ल्ड बैंक के कंसल्टेंट हैं। पाकिस्तान की कैपिटल मार्केट की रिफॉर्म्स में इनका एक अहम और कलीदी किरदार रहा है, और आज भी वक्तन फ़वक्तन ये पाकिस्तान की कैपिटल मार्केट के ऊपर पेपर्स लिखते रहते हैं, रेगुलेटर्स को एडवाइस करते रहते हैं। और इन्होंने 3 बुनियादी चीज़ों की तरफ इशारा किया। इन्होंने कहा कि दुनिया की कोई भी कैपिटल मार्केट जो है वो डिफ़ॉल्ट काउंटर सेगमेंट की कंपनीज़ को बर्दाश्त नहीं करती। 1 साल 2 साल वो देखती है और उसके बाद वो फोर्सिबली डीलिस्ट कर देती है। पाकिस्तान के अंदर होता ये है कि रेगुलेटर बहुत जान मारकर इस स्टेज तक पहुंच पाता है कि उसको डीलिस्ट करने के अहकाम जारी करे और फिर कोर्ट से कंपनीज स्टे ले लेती हैं। सो पोजीशन ये है कि 177 कंपनीज ऐसी हैं 557 कंपनीज में से जो कि डिफ़ॉल्ट काउंटर पर हैं और वो कैपिटल मार्केट में कोई कंट्रीब्यूट नहीं कर रही, बल्कि उनको जो फ़ीस देनी चाहिए लिस्टिंग की शायद वो भी अदा नहीं कर रही। दूसरी चीज़ जो डेविड वाइट ने कही वो ये कही कि जो पीमैक्स है उसके वॉल्यूम्स और वैल्यू ट्रेडेड कभी कभार पाकिस्तान स्टॉक एक्सचेंज के एक्विटी सेगमेंट से बढ़ जाते हैं। सुकूक की जो वैल्यू ट्रेडेड है वो कभी कभार एक्विटी सेगमेंट से बढ़ जाती है। सो दो चीज़ें डेविड ने पॉइंट आउट की। एक तो उनकी बात ये थी कि पीमैक्स जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट ट्रेड कर रहा है, यानी न्यूयॉर्क का इंडेक्स ट्रेड कर रहा है बट पाकिस्तान का इंडेक्स नहीं ट्रेड हो रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ द पॉलिटिक्स। पाकिस्तान में कभी डेरिवेटिव एक्सचेंज अलग बनाने की बातें होती हैं, कभी डेरिवेटिव के अलग लाइसेंसेस और अलग अप्रोचेस की बात होती है। बट इन सब चीज़ों के पीछे लगता यह है कि एक ख़ास स्कीम के तहत वर्ल्ड क्लास डेरिवेटिव्स को पाकिस्तान में इंट्रोड्यूस करने से रोका जाता है या उसको दबाया जाता है। सो व्हाट ही ट्राइड सेइंग वाज कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर रिफॉर्म्स में जो बहुत ही बुनियादी सी चीज़ है, सिर्फ इंडिया की तरफ देखना चाहिए। इंडिया ने डेरिवेटिव्स को इंट्रोड्यूस किया और बदले टाइप की तमाम प्रोडक्ट्स को ख़त्म किया, जिसकी वजह से ये हो गया कि हिंदुस्तान में 6000 से ज़ायद लिस्टेड कंपनीज़ हैं। हिंदुस्तान में जीडीपी के इक्वलेंट मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन है और वहाँ पर का जो इन्वेस्टर बेस है वो इस रीजन का सबसे बड़ा इन्वेस्टर बेस है। आखिर में उन्होंने ये कहा कि नई लिस्टिंग के लिए जिस तरह की रिफॉर्म्स चाहिए हैं पाकिस्तानी कैपिटल मार्केट में, बुनियादी तौर पर लोगों को समझ ही नहीं है कि इशूअर को किन चीज़ों की तलब होती है और किस तरह का कॉन्फिडेंस कैपिटल मार्केट में अगर इशूअर को मिलेगा तो वो कैपिटल मार्केट की तरफ देखेगा। आखिर में उन्होंने जिक्र किया कि जो बाहर का इन्वेस्टर है वो पाकिस्तानी कैपिटल मार्केट के जब नंबर्स को देखता है, माशी अशारियों को देखता है, तो वो कंफ्यूज हो जाता है कि कैपिटल मार्केट के जो अशारिये हैं वो इकॉनमी के साथ उस तरीके से जेल नहीं होते जिस तरीके से वर्ल्ड क्लास मार्केट में होना चाहिए। रिस्क एवर्जन के ऊपर ही सेट कि पाकिस्तान में ये वाली सोच कि रिस्क एवर्जन के नाम पर बहुत ज़्यादा सुकूक के इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स को कैपिटल मार्केट में ले आया जाए, अगेन ही सेट कि ये वो चीज़ नहीं है कि जो दुनिया की बाकी कैपिटल मार्केट्स में फॉलो की जाती है या ऑब्ज़र्व की जाती है। उन्होंने कहा कि मलेशिया भी एक इस्लामी मुल्क है, लेकिन मलेशिया की जो एक्विटी सेगमेंट है वो बहुत ही वाइब्रेंट है, एक्टिव है और डायनेमिक है। पाकिस्तान के अंदर तमाम का तमाम जो इन्वेस्टर बेस है, प्रोडक्ट बेस है, 60% ऑफ द वॉल्यूम है दैट एमिनेट्स फ्रॉम द प्रोडक्ट्स विच आर हाइब्रिड डेरिवेटिव ड्रिवन। DFM, MTS और MFS, DFM और MTS वाली जो स्टॉक्स हैं वो 60% ऑफ द वॉल्यूम एंड वैल्यू को ड्राइव करती है, जो कैपिटल मार्केट की लॉन्ग टर्म सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए बेहतर नहीं है। कैपिटल मार्केट की रिफॉर्म के ऊपर डेविड रेगुलेटर से टाइम टू टाइम बातचीत करते रहते। वी होप कि दिस टाइम अराउंड व्हेन ही डिस्कसेस दिस मैटर विद द रेगुलेटर, वी होप टू सी द रेगुलेटर and the government looking into what he says and implementing recommendations. So नाजरीन, इस तरह की बातचीत तजज़ियों का सिलसिला आगे भी जारी रखेंगे। इजाज़त दीजिए, अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।